going to start out my sermon with a disclaimer. The disclaimer is that my husband is a very, very good man. I don't want you to get the wrong idea when I tell this story. He was afraid you might get the wrong idea. And so I have to tell you that because I did get his permission to tell this story, but he was still a little afraid. About 2 Sundays ago, yes, it was 2 weeks ago today, was after midnight. We were asleep. Our bedroom is downstairs, right off the front porch. We can hear everything. We have a fan. We don't even have an air conditioner because we don't need it. The air is nice and cool. It blows right in. But because of that, we can hear everything that goes on outside. And one night, there was a lot of noise, a lot of ruckus. Some guys were out there, like, screaming. And so I have never seen Chris get up so fast. He must have heard something that I didn't hear, but I mean, he was up, boom, and out the door. And there were some words. These guys were stealing things. And there were some threats toward Chris. Some really bad threats. Some life-threatening threats. So Chris immediately comes back in, and he's looking for something. Now, I didn't hear the life-threatening threats. I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he comes back, and first he picks up, like, a pole. And then he picks up a hammer. And he's walking back out the door. And I'm like, Chris? And like the good wife I am, I hold out my hand. And it was as if he knew, and he handed me the hammer. And I put the hammer on my side table next to my bed, where I believe the hammer is still sitting. And there were still some more words. Chris was not going to go back to bed until these, I'll say, gentlemen who threatened my husband's life left the area. Chris stood on the porch until they were definitely gone, and they eventually left, and we went back to bed. Now, we slept with one eye open. Of course, nights like that, you have your ears open. You know, you're listening for every little thing. But things changed that night. There were definitely some changes. We now lock our doors. For 15 years, we have lived in that house, and we have not locked our doors. Now, we have human-sized dogs. We never felt the need to lock our doors. But we now lock our doors. The other thing that I noticed that was a change was that back in his younger years, Chris would have never listened to me. He would have never handed over that weapon. He would have fought for his family. He would have defended us no matter what. He would have not heard me. He would have just gone. But the other thing is he would have not grabbed a weapon. He would have just been off that porch defending us. But see, he's older and he's wiser now. He knows how to utilize his words to get out of a situation when it comes to younger men who are just mouthing off, threatening to kill him. He knows that, those men may have just been mouthing off, but he also knows how to stand back. He's wiser now. He has changed. Had he been younger, that could have been a very ugly situation. And maybe something else changed. Those young men that were out there, when they were young boys, did they think, hey, we're going to go steal stuff when we're in our young 20s? We're going to go make noise. We're going to get drunk. We're going to go do drugs. Because they were by no means sober when they were doing it. Oh, and by the way, they were stealing a garbage can. I can't imagine that they were thinking that these are the things that they wanted to do when they were going to grow up. I'm thinking more like they were going to think that they were going to be firefighters or rock stars or astronauts. That's the thing that I think that young boys think of when they're growing up. But people change. They change the way they act. They change the way they look. Sometimes they try and stop the way they are changing. Anti-aging, plastic surgery, makeup, weight loss, hair replacement, wig industries, combined makeup, a total of $128 billion a year. See? I did this for a reason. Sometimes we like change, sometimes we don't. I'm sure there are some of you, maybe you like the new look. I'm sure that there are some of you that absolutely hate this thing, and that's okay. I don't think I like it. But no one is going to fight over the look of my hair. That's not going to cause a fight. But what people do think is worth fighting over and have fought over since the beginning is, what is the appropriate way to live a life for God, and how those beliefs should look, what that doctrine should look like. And when I say fight over, it could be anywhere from, gathering around a table and fighting over it, or all-out war, because we should know our Christian history isn't all that pretty. There have been wars over this. The thing is when Christianity was formed, it was formed at a time when there was Judaism and Gentiles. And the Gentiles believed in many gods, and in Judaism, they believed in one God. And then Christ walks the earth and says, love your neighbor, no matter what, no exceptions, and the whole world turns upside down. When Paul is writing this letter to the Ephesians, it is precisely about that, Jews and Gentiles coming together as one, unity. One faith, one God, living together, being one, but everybody's not the same. And hey, everybody changes. And can we give a little bit? They were fighting over the fact that they were different. They were fighting over the fact of what they believed in, but this was such a new belief that nobody really knew. There were so many different people coming in and saying, hey, you should believe this. No, this is the way to believe. No, this is the way to believe. No, this is the way to believe. And Paul's just trying to get it straight in the church of Ephesus. No, listen to me. One God, one faith, one baptism. Don't listen to all these other people out on the street. The Jews didn't have the right to tell the Gentiles that they had to follow Jewish traditions. The Gentiles didn't have the right to tell the Jews that they had to stop following their traditions, because truth be told, when Jews became Christians, they didn't stop following their Jewish traditions. And that's okay, and that was okay, according to our Bible. But it was also okay that Gentiles didn't have to follow those traditions. Do you see how this can get all messed up? It can get a little confusing. But here's the thing. The Gentiles wanted to be considered as the same status as the Jews. And the Jews had to consider the Gentiles as the same status. Oh, this was big. This was big right here. Unity. Because there was never that before. Paul said, you are one. Yes, maybe you have different jobs. Maybe you have different places in calling. But you are one. Unity. This is what's going to change. So as Christianity is finding its way into being, people are changing. People are constantly changing. But even through that changing, people are covered. That is what we must understand. From the depths of the underworld to the highest heights of heaven, Jesus has been there, and it's all covered. And that's what's hard to understand sometimes. Things are changing here, right here in this church. This church was built in a different place than it stands right now. Yes, it stands in the exact same physical place that it was built. But no one can deny that this is a completely different city than when this building was built. Why? Because people change. If people change, then the city has changed. Then we can only come to one conclusion. The church must have changed. Has it? It has. You see, this church is a big, beautiful building. It was built for all to see. It screams, look at me. It is gorgeous. Come worship God here. That's what I envision this building saying if it could talk. It is a gorgeous historical landmark. People come from all over to view this beautiful Tiffany window, to learn the history, and to look at the building, gazing up when they're outside. It is a glorious church that was built in the downtown. It is still a sight to look upon. And there's probably some members here who still gaze up at this building, longing for what once was, because it was such a memorable time, a joyous time, a time like no other in your lives. And that's okay, because we all reminisce about something that made us feel such joy in our younger years. I already reminisce about walking up to my door and just being able to push it open without having to fumble with my keys as I juggle a million things in my hands. The question becomes then, are the people changing too fast? And has the church changed enough? And will it change fast enough to keep up? Or is the church going to try and stop the change that is inevitable? I think the church is doing a good job of preparing. I believe that this church is evolving. And there is a fine line, too. There are probably people out there saying, Kim, what do you mean that this church is changing? The church is undergoing an evolution because people are changing. And what did we say before? What do we know? The church is made of people. And regardless of where we as people land, Jesus has us covered. What are some things that help me to see this evolution? People come to our door often. They are in need. They know that this church will not turn them away empty-handed if we can help it. And if we don't have what they need, we will make sure that we send them to a resource that will or may be able to help them. We have signs on our lawn. Signs, signs, signs. Anyone who knows me knows I love a good social justice sign. The day that we put our first sign up out there, the joy in my heart, that is a day that when I am older, like in 30 more years, I will be looking back on that day, reminiscing. The day that we put signs out in the front lawn. The community outreach in this church is amazing. Many people in this city have no idea how far the caring arms of this church stretch and how many hurting people in this city those arms hold. But then there are some not so positive things that come with this. We've had things stolen. Garbage cans. What is it with people stealing garbage cans in this city? Someone stole garbage cans here too. Last year, someone walked into the educational building. I think it was last year or the year before. Last year was a complete loss, so it must have been the year before. They stole a mini fridge with Patrick's lunch in it. They walked in empty-handed and walked out with a mini fridge and lunch. We've had windows busted. That was just recently. And the situation that they were busted in wasn't a good situation either. I mean, it happened because a fight was taking place. We have recently installed a security system, cameras. That must have been a big decision for Session to have to say, we need to put security cameras on our church property. That is a big change. People have made their way into this church, and I've seen it because the organization that I work for has their office in the educational building, but people have made their way into this church with either paranoid mental health issues or drug and alcohol issues. And they saw the building as either a sanctuary, and they felt safe in the building, and they had to be talked down before they would leave. And they did leave without issue, but the situation was, it could have gone either way. Now with that security camera, the security cameras that I talked about, we now have footage. So the APD will knock on the door some days and say, a situation happened in this area. We think your cameras might have footage of it. Can we take a look? Some of you may know about some of these things, and some of you may know about all of them. Some of you may not know about any of them. But when there is both positive change and not so positive change, it comes with this territory that I'm about to speak about. I heard the term thrown around in this church a few years ago, and I don't know who came up with the term, but I heard the term thrown around. And when I first heard it, I couldn't see it be in the label of this church. But now I see an evolution. I see it happening, and I'm excited about it. You see, we are evolving from a church that is located downtown to a downtown church. That's the term, downtown church. It's happening. Some of you are going to love it, and some of you are not going to like it at all. Here's the thing, it can't be stopped because we're located downtown, and this is what's happening downtown. It's the very thing that's going to keep this church's heartbeat in sync with the people's heartbeat, with the city's heartbeat. You see, when I pass this church now, I see people hanging out on the benches. I see people sitting on the steps. These are things I did not see when I first started attending this church. Sometimes, maybe I'd see people who were like from merry-go-round, hanging out, but never people from the city. Some of the people that are hanging out on the benches and the steps I recognize as people who come and get food from the soup kitchen that I serve in. Some people look tired. Some people need to sit and rest. They see our benches as a sanctuary, as a place to get that rest. I don't know what's going on in their lives, but they need some sort of tranquility, and they find it here. But what happens if we are constantly looking up at the church, back and how the church did run its programs and such? We can reminisce about the history. There's nothing wrong with that. There's joy in that. But if you try and bring that back, you are stuck in a church that was built in the downtown. You refuse to enter into the downtown church that is so necessary to be relevant to the people who sit on the steps and the benches outside, the people who run into the church for sanctuary, the people who are searching for the church that accepts them as they are dressed, as their trauma has left them, or any other reason some other church has closed their doors to them. We are evolving into that church. We are changing as the people of the city change. We're not quite there yet, but my brothers and sisters, we are becoming what is called a downtown church. So be ready to take your eyes off the beauty of what once was and see the new beauty of what has and is to become. The beauty of a downtown church is different than that of the church built in the downtown. The downtown church lives and breathes at the foot of the cross. It is a place where we have no option but to see the pain. It is a place where we cannot live without the unity and loyalty to Jesus. Flowers don't always grow here. The beauty appears different. It is a place where we have no other option than to welcome all and to love all. Amen.